Welcome to my channel where I chat about my science job hunt, deliver presentations and improve on my communication skills. I'm Paul Gateman, a microbiologist of 15 years seeking a return to the lab. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. Today I will discuss generalists versus specialists. Should you be a generalist or a specialist? In nature, generalists tend to be longer lasting than specialists. In our job search, some people advise that you must differentiate yourself from the pack and be what is known as your unicorn. So pretty much a farcical magical beast that never existed, does not exist, and is unlikely to exist. What they really mean is that your specific skill set should somehow be different to everyone else's, and thus your one unique ability will help you secure the role you are after. That's just not practical. What you really need is a compelling way to explain who you are, what you have done, and why you are best suited for the role on offer. So first up, let's talk about generalists. As a generalist, I am a microbiologist. I've audited and mapped processes, I've written and updated controlled and managed documentation, and done that in plain language. I've worked for novel, as in developers, and generic, as in using what novel companies have made, pharmaceutical manufacturers, both those making sterile products and those making non-sterile products. I am a developer and deliverer of training. I've run projects, I've validated many methods and items of plant. I've worked on the bench as a team leader and in both quality assurance and quality control roles. In my job search, I could apply for roles with any combination of the above and be suited. If one type of job dries up, say a bacteriologist, being a generalist will enable me and you to keep applying for jobs relevant to your background and or skills. Now let's talk about being a specialist. Referencing my Finding Your Niche video, I could argue that my special skills are documentation, FDA regulation, knowledge, and the ability to develop and deliver training. That is, to communicate potentially complex concepts to others in easily to understand ways. As a specialist, I run the risk of limiting myself to the pharmaceutical industry and a company governed by the FDA and TGA regulations where there's a need to skill up existing staff. In my job search, that means I would be excluding myself from all other microbiology roles and those perhaps where there was not a pressing need to train others. So limited opportunity versus the world is my oyster. In reality, what's more important than differentiating yourself is how you communicate your skills and experience to others. So you need to get good at becoming a storyteller, and regardless of whether you style yourself as the specialist or the generalist, you've got to be able to clearly communicate this in an interview or elsewhere, such as say on YouTube or Twitter or wherever you're trying to, I guess, spruik or advertise your abilities. People value communication skills quite highly. If you can get the information across better than others who are on par with you or better than you, then you'll likely be the one chosen for the job offer. Why? Because you can actually communicate concepts to people and they get it easier than other candidates. So, how do you get better at storytelling? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. So here's what I've started to do. I pick 5 to 10 tasks or projects from my work history, and using a standard list of likely job interview questions I've developed over the last 20 years, I tailor my answers using the STAR method. This means that rather than needing to think of specific answers to say, tell me of a time when you experienced conflict, or tell me of a time when you managed change, or tell me of a time when, insert whatever. I have 5 to 10 stories to tell that can be adapted to all behaviourally based questions that tend to be asked in an interview. That also means that the answers you give are sort of consistent and they build a story around, say, 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 specific instances. So that means that's an effective use of your time when you're preparing for interviews. So 3 examples of this for me are control of the aseptic media fill program, Investigation of a radiating pattern of contamination that only occurred during the first hours of a batch in a specific filling room, and validation of the MAS 100 air sampler. So for each of my stories, I formulated CAR answers. That's context, action, result. Very similar to STAR, and when you develop your answers in that format, they'll come across as STAR. So slightly less work, same outcome. So great use of time. Once you have packaged your answers, then you need to practice them, of course. In summary, I think it's better to be a generalist. That way, you do not exclude yourself from roles that you may like or even be good at. You need to develop your stories to show how you are the best job candidate, and you need to practice telling your stories. Same thing as what I've said in previous videos. Basically, become familiar with what you're saying and who you are, so your communication comes across as more natural. In my next video, I will discuss some general job application thoughts. If you have found this video interesting or informative, consider subscribing, sharing, liking, or commenting. I consider all relevant feedback as positive, as without a feedback loop, improving is harder. Until next time, this has been Paul Yateman, a scientist seeking career satisfaction. Kapla!